Welcome back. Today, we've got a really fantastic explainer lined up for you. We're going to be shifting entirely away from those outdated, stiff stereotypes of what a software architect is supposed to be. Instead, we're going to explore the modern reality of the role, and we'll do it using some absolutely brilliant metaphors shared by retired big tech veteran Gregor Hohpe. Seriously, if you want to understand what top-tier architects truly do differently behind the scenes, you are in exactly the right place.
Here is our agenda for today. We'll be covering 5 distinct mental models you need to master. 1. The architect mindset shift. 2. Managing risk and complexity. 3. The phantom sketch artist. 4. The scout and the jester. And 5. Revalidating outdated tech heuristics.
Section 1. The architect mindset shift, a crucial shift.
To kick things off, we really have to establish one core rule, which is that being a truly great architect isn't determined by what's printed on your business card. It's actually a fundamental shift in how you interact with your team. And, to understand the good, we first have to recognize the bad. The bad architects, they're notoriously easy to spot. They try to play the role of the oracle. They sit up there in their ivory tower, basically demanding that everyone come to them for magic answers. They're usually the ones spewing out buzzwords, telling developers that everything must be cloud native or loosely coupled, without actually understanding the context of the specific project you're working on. They just fundamentally believe it's their job to hold all the decision-making power. But in stark contrast to the oracle, the modern top-tier architect takes on the persona of the amplifier. Listen to this because it's key. Your primary goal isn't to prove you are the smartest person in the room. Your goal is to make everybody else in the room smarter. Good architects act as a sounding board. They're like a highly skilled rubber ducky. People come to them with a problem, and the architect asks a few probing questions, sketches something out, and helps the team uncover their own blind spots.
So it really comes down to this dichotomy. While an oracle dictates my way or the highway and essentially acts as a rigid stopgap to innovation, an amplifier absorbs the context. They don't write the exact code or make the absolute final choice for the developer. Instead, they distill hidden trade-offs and help the team make a better, far more informed decision.
Section 2. Managing risk and complexity. Risk and distribution. Once you have that right mindset, you have to apply it to the actual physics of distributed systems and organizational risk. You'll often hear that an architect's job is to lower risk. But lowering risk doesn't just mean strictly executing a perfect upfront plan. Software has inherent risks, right? Like whether the users will even like the thing. And when it comes to distributed systems, there is an inherent complexity you literally cannot cheat your way out of. Things like handling traffic jams with back pressure or preventing duplicate orders with idempotency. The goal isn't to pretend this complexity doesn't exist. Instead, you make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. You just make it intuitive for your developers to handle that inherent complexity.
And the crucial point here is how we frame these complex solutions to avoid endless arguments. This is what we call mapping the map. When teams argue over Slack about monolith versus microservices, they're usually stuck in a binary debate. But by mapping design time modularity against runtime modularity, we instantly double the solution space to 4 quadrants. Now, instead of blindly fighting, we can clearly discuss if we need a highly structured modular monolith or maybe a distributed monolith. It gives the whole team a common coordinate system to actually frame their disagreement.
Which leads to a massive realization. There is no such thing as universally good or bad architecture. It is only about what is suitable or unsuitable. For example, developers love to hate on the big ball of mud pattern. But guess what? If your business has a tight 1-month launch deadline, 0 budget, and a team with limited skills, a big ball of mud is highly suitable. It's quick, it's cheap, and it gets the job done. Top-tier architects judge architecture based on conscious trade-offs, not universal rankings.
Section 3. The phantom sketch artist. Visualizing architecture. Now we get to one of the most fascinating aspects of an architect's daily life, how they use visual models. I absolutely love this metaphor. Think of the architect as the phantom sketch artist. Back in the day, a bank teller who witnessed a robbery knew exactly what the suspect looked like, but if you handed them a pen, they'd draw a ridiculous stick figure, right? They just lacked the skill to express it. The police sketch artist, however, has never seen the suspect, but by asking the right questions and drawing out the details, they create a perfect portrait. As an architect, your developers know their systems intimately, but they often can't draw them out. You extract that knowledge and sketch it perfectly, until the developer points at the whiteboard and says, "Yes, exactly like that."
But how do you draw it perfectly? Well, just like a real sketch artist has to study human anatomy and bone structure to draw a realistic face, you have to understand technical anatomy to draw a system. These simple visual dimensions carry deep technical meaning. Drawing 3 stacked boxes implies a very specific constraint about multiplicity, like how many instances of a component exist at once. Drawing an asynchronous line versus a synchronous one, that dictates a massive architectural trade-off. This is the highly logical left brain part of the job.
But a great architect doesn't stop at left brain logic. You got to play a ping-pong game with your right brain to find the creative story hidden within those technical boxes. You need to look at your matrix and recognize a shape, a sticky pattern, or a narrative. Why? Because that compelling, defensible story is what allows you to ride the architect elevator all the way up to the penthouse to pitch to the executives. You bring a catchy visual narrative backed up entirely by rock-solid engineering. Section 4. The Scout and the Jester. Navigating Politics. Operating inside large, fast-paced enterprise organizations really changes how you work. In the past, architects acted a lot like cartographers. They tried to build these giant, sprawling maps cataloging every single IT system. But today, the world just moves way too fast. By the time your massive map is done, it's already outdated. Instead, you must act as the scout. You need to be purpose-driven and timely. You don't map the whole world. You go out to answer a specific strategic question. For example, can we cross this river using generative AI? You come back with a highly targeted map that answers that specific objective. And to navigate the internal politics of all this, we introduce another incredibly powerful persona, the court jester. As an architect, you often don't have the biggest headcount or the biggest budget, meaning you have very little direct authority, but you have massive influential power. Why? Because executives and teams actually trust you. You aren't trying to inflate your own budget or overcomplicate things just to pad your resume. You literally have no hidden agenda, which gives you the unique freedom to tell the hard, ugly truths that no one else in the room wants to say.
So you have to manage your political capital almost like a ledger. First, you earn capital by delivering, keeping your promises, and building trust. Second, you hold capital by choosing your battles. You can't start a massive war every time someone violates a minor coding standard. You have to sleep at night. Finally, you spend your capital wisely. You save it up to call out the one massive, multi-million-dollar project that you know for a fact is a train wreck in the making. If you run around calling everyone wrong all the time, you'll just be labeled the grumpy complainer.
Section 5. Revalidating outdated tech heuristics. Revalidating knowledge.
Now we tackle the silent killer of literally any software architect's career. I want you to consider this deeply. It is incredibly dangerous to rely entirely on technical heuristics you learned a decade ago. 10 years ago, you might have learned the golden rule that everything must scale out. But today, Moore's Law has outpaced a lot of business growth, and a single modern server can hold terabytes of business data entirely in memory. A decision that was total genius 5 years ago might be a massive, costly mistake today.
So, how do you actually revalidate those assumptions? Well, you cannot sit isolated in a quiet chamber. You must network, hang out with hands-on practitioners, buy them a coffee, and get a high-bandwidth, full download of what they are building right now. And a critical warning here regarding modern tools, do not just use AI to cheat. Never copy-paste raw LLM outputs into an architecture document. Trust me, executives can smell those weird jumps in logic a mile away. Use these tools as a starting point to amplify your abilities, but remember, make the tool work for you, don't just be the tool. As we pull all this together, I want to leave you with a crucial piece of encouragement. Don't stumble on the finish line. As an architect, you will sometimes draw out a complex system, unearth all the hidden assumptions, and present a solution that looks so incredibly simple that people might look at it and say, well, that was obvious. Don't doubt yourself when this happens. If you make sense out of the absolute chaos and the final result seems obvious, that is peak performance. You've done a fantastic job. Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to consider about your own daily work. Ask yourself, are you building complex systems just to prove your intelligence to the room? Or are you acting as the ultimate amplifier for your team? Remember, a top-tier architect isn't an oracle dispensing magic. They are the catalyst that makes everyone else around them smarter. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep amplifying.